Good morning, everyone. I'm starting with the slideshow already up because I'm having a slight delay on my internet connection this morning. So I thought we'd save that being an issue going forward. Welcome very much to Nutrien Ag Solutions Community Grants Program Grant Seeker Workshop. Today I'll be speaking. My name's Danielle Griffin. I'm the Program Manager. Jane Crane, the Grants Project Officer, will be taking you through the information on writing grants. And we also have Jacqueline Webb, the Community Investment Coordinator from Nutrien, joining us today as well. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge where I'm coming from today, in the spirit of reconciliation, the traditional lands of the Yuin people in Dalmeny in southern New South Wales. So I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians throughout Australia, their connections to land, sea and community, and pay our respect to their elders past and present, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. And I'd like to also welcome you on whichever lands you are coming from. We have 21 people joining us at the moment, so I'm sure you're coming from right across Australia. A little bit of housekeeping. If you could silence phones and mute yourself during the presentation, that would be great. There will be a link to the recording of this presentation, and a PDF of the slides will be emailed to attendees within 48 hours. Please put any questions and feedback in the chat as we go along. We appreciate all your comments to help us help you. Firstly, we'll give you a bit of an overview on FRRR and Nutrien. We'll talk about the grant opportunity specifically, and we'll open up the floor to questions on the grant. Then we'll move into a workshop on grant writing tips and resources, and we'll finish with another opportunity for questions overall. And that includes you being able to talk from the floor, or we'll look in the chat and see what questions we can answer that haven't actually been answered already. FRRR, if you're not familiar with FRRR, we stand for the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal. And our mission is connecting goodwill with good purpose for the vitality of remote, rural and regional Australia. We are the only organisation in Australia set up specifically to support rural, regional and remote Australia communities to thrive and be sustainable in the future going forward, particularly supporting those grassroots organisations that enable them. Now I'd like to introduce Jacqueline Webb.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Hi everyone, I'm Jackie Webb, and this year I've had the great pleasure of being part of the Nutrien Ag Solutions Corporate Affairs team and focusing on community investments while Maddie Muirhead is on maternity leave. So for those of you that might not know us very well, Nutrien Ag Solutions is the largest provider of agricultural services and solutions to farmers. So in Australia, so we have a really large footprint with over 700 stores across Australia. Some of you already might be familiar with our business, but for others who may not be on the call, you can literally find us in every state. So, you know, as a major employer and partner in hundreds of communities, we really understand the importance of contributing to a safe, successful and sustainable future for regional Australia. So we work closely with rural and regional communities every day, and we know just how important it is to support people and projects that really keep these towns thriving. So it's important to us, it's important to our business, and it's important to our people. So many of our people whom live and work in these communities themselves. One of the programs that we're incredibly proud of here is the Nutrien Ag Solutions Community Grants Program, so which we've deliver in partnership with FRRR. And this program is really about supporting the heart of our communities. So they're local initiatives, the volunteer groups and the grassroots projects that really make these regional towns great places to live and work. So we're now in our 5th round of funding. So it's really truly heartwarming, I should say, to see the difference and impact that these small grants can make. So we really genuinely feel privileged here to partner with FRRR on this and make this lasting impact in these communities as well. So thank you so much for having us here today. I really look forward to hearing more about the great work that's happening in your communities as well through this grant application process. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you very much, Jackie. I think it's really important just for us to have a look at the last 4 years of the grant program. As Jackie said, this is really a grant program for local community organisations to meet an important need in their community, and to look at the wide community benefit that can be achieved, and contribute to the resilience of the community and strength and that positive long-term effect. For you people on the call, I think it's really important to know that, we've already 226 grants have been awarded. Over $1 million is invested in the communities across Australia. And a lot of those applicants are new applicants to FRRR programs. So they're not organisations that have been supported by FRRR or even applied to an FRRR grant before. So, we're really open to any organisation. And 87 of those groups received grants. So 38% of the grants that have been received have never previously received a grant from FRRR or through the Nutrien program. 70% grantees are volunteer-run organisations. So we are supporting those small community organisations, that are run by people with their passion and commitment to actually making their communities thrive. We're also supporting small populations. So 85% of applications are for populations of 10,000 or less. And 66 or 150 of the grants went to populations for less than 2,000. So, we really encourage you, no matter how small you are, to really tell us your story and what you need. The applications are open now, and they close on Thursday, 7th of August, at 5 p.m. Victorian time. There's 250,000 available in total, and grants are up to 5,000. So we award a minimum of 50 grants every year. We're looking for grantees that can contribute to the success, vibrancy and wellbeing of rural and regional Australia, supporting local grassroots organisations. And a really important thing is that we ask you to connect with your local Nutrien branch manager as a part of this process. Your Nutrien branch manager, that can be by email, phone, or in person, has been briefed. They're able to endorse several projects. They're not limited in the number of projects that they can endorse from the community or the surrounding area that they represent. So it's not a first in, best dressed, but they are aware of some of the requirements of the grant program. But if they have any questions, then they will come to you or come to us and confirm that you're eligible, and they will send you a note saying that they endorse it. We require you to actually attach that to your application. Okay, who can apply? Not-for-profit organisations. You don't have to be a registered deductible gift recipient charity. You just need to have an ABN, and the project needs to be for a charitable purpose. You can only apply with one project per round. The projects must benefit rural, regional and remote communities. These aren't grants for metro communities. And we don't fund organisations who received a grant in last year, 2024, purely because we want to make sure we're reaching as many organisations as possible. So there's a little bit more of information on this. We are looking for those high priority projects where agriculture is a key industry and a part of the local identity. That's part of our relationship with Nutrien and really reflecting the communities that they engage with and their businesses. The projects must have a charitable purpose and broadly benefit their local community. As you'll see, we can't support, really niche projects that are for business purposes. They need to be changing things positively for the community. It's really important for us when you're talking to us about what you do, that you tell us what else your organisation does in the community and how this project is locally led and supported by the community. What we cannot fund is sporting activity, equipment, development or programs. Sport is not a eligible tax charitable activity. However, we know that many sporting organisations are, the heart of the community, and they may be responsible for delivering projects that are broader than the actual sports themselves. So we're very open to receiving applications from you. You just have to ensure that the project is for a broader community benefit. We don't fund ongoing core organisational costs, but we will fund any costs, including wages, that are related to the project delivery. Prizes, gifts, trophies or awards are not eligible to be funded. We suggest you look for sponsorship if that's a part of your project for those particular costs. Projects must be occurring at after this grant is announced, which is mid-October. So projects can't be in progress right now or have already occurred by the time funding is awarded. Obviously, we only support projects in Australia, so no external outside Australia activities are funded, nor do we support political parties, lobby groups or religious promotion. Projects that are primarily benefiting private business, sole traders or private interests are also ineligible. What can be funded? There's a broad range of activity that can be funded. You can deliver or provide activities, events, programs and services. You can purchase or hire equipment and materials for the work you do or a specific purpose. We will support community infrastructure projects. We're conscious that it's a $5,000 grant. This grant may go towards a bigger project for something really specific in regards to that community facility upgrades. We will support organisational capacity building, which could be training or strategic planning. And we'll also support developing community resources to support an area that's really important. What we fund projects objectives, I think you'll find this information in the guidelines, and it's really handy when you're looking at your project to kind of understand what are the objectives and see how they line up to this list here, such as, does your project build the organisation's operational capacity and sustainability? Is it bringing the community together to foster stronger, more resilient communities? Is it fostering and celebrating a sense of identity, diversity and cultural connection within the community? And also, are you supporting diverse groups within rural and regional communities, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, people that may be from culturally and linguistically diverse communities, those living with a disability, and also LGBTQIA people? We know that small communities are made up with really diverse people, and they all contribute their own ideas, and so we'd like to see projects that are representative and inclusive. We're also interested in projects that improve community health and wellbeing. Sustainable volunteer bases we know are really, really important, and also supporting the wellbeing of your volunteers. Increasing access and inclusion for vulnerable and disadvantaged groups, enhancing places where communities gather, so we know how important those community halls and facilities are, and how sometimes a facelift or additional equipment can really make the difference about how that facility can be used and who by. We're interested in how you may have events or enabling initiatives that champion your community. Where we understand that digital technology is a real challenge, and access can really limit connectivity more broadly outside of with the community reaching out. So we're interested in projects like that. And just more broadly enabling people in your community to develop skills and knowledge that will contribute, back to the prosperity and renewability of the community. I've got a few examples here, and I think what's really great to see about these examples um, is, they're quite simple, but you understand when you think about those objectives, what they actually achieve from a longer term purpose. So in Natmuc, which is in Victoria, they have a Soldiers Memorial Hall and they put in a new audio visual system. Um, this sound system and data projector changes the way that hall can now be used for cultural events and also for presentations. Having a local community kind of theatre enables people to be able to come along and connect as well. So it ticks that box about community connectivity. Can also tick the box on sustainability because it means that presentations can occur there and there's interest and funding that might be provided through rental of that facility for that community group. And additionally, it just makes people think of broader ways that they might be able to bring information to the community where there's no access rather than people having to travel outside the community. So, something as simple as this equipment provides a whole other way for social, economic, and cultural connections. So, the District Agricultural Show in Hamilton in Tasmania received $5,000 for their Build, Grow, Protect workshops. And they actually were responding to the challenge of women in the district often being lonely or isolated due to, as I know many of you probably relate to, that challenge of everything that needs to happen, some of the issues of access to services, etc., and trying to fit it all in. So this presentation was a really great opportunity to bring people together. They had some really impressive spokespeople, including someone talking about crime, a police commissioner from Hobart, who spoke to them about crime and also just understanding small things in their community and how to manage those. And this kind of information can be really empowering, particularly when it's provided in a group environment, a live group environment where people get to talk about things. This is where people often come up with solutions. So we know these one-off events that really think about what content is important and what happens when you put everyone in a room. We look at those and we think this is great. They're addressing a real challenge that can occur in rural and regional Australia. And speaking of access, this is a great example of communities who are kind of taking ownership of some of the challenges of having access to health in their communities. They were reinstating their local community health centre facilities, and one of the things that they requested from the funding here was for air conditioning and to provide disability access to the toilet. So while it was a bigger project that required paint and some refurbishing of the building, they were really specific that they needed this funding for those two things that we could immediately understand were critical to the running of the operations. So, if you've got a big project and you're trying to work out all the different funding elements, this is a really great grant opportunity to look at and see how it might support a critical element of that project. So quite literally, what would you do with a $5,000 grant in your community? We're interested in what your project is, who it will benefit, who will be involved and help to do the work. And it's always important to think about, do you need approval? Particularly, thinking about this early allows you to kind of be prepared when it's time to put the grant in. For your information, we receive around 200 applications every year for this grant program, and we have a look right across the board in regards to how well the project meets the criteria and some of those objectives I've been talking about and those activities that we said we fund. And we also look at, where communities are because we're looking to spread it right across Australia. So, if you know other community groups are doing things in your community, maybe talk to them about where they think the priorities are or how you might collaborate on a project as well. Myself and Jane, my grants officer, do the initial assessments of the applications and present a list of projects that we recommend to an advisory program committee that includes Nutrien Ag Solutions representatives, as well as the FRRR program place lead and the FRRR CEO, who becomes the final decision maker with regards to the awarding of the grants. Grants will be announced in mid-October. And if you're successful, you'll receive an email letting you know the next stages in actually accessing the funds, how to promote your project and your obligations with regards to reporting back to us. And this will be announced on the FRRR website. Also, if you're not successful, we let you know via email, and we really encourage you to consider this as a chance for feedback. I've spoken to many people who in their first opportunity haven't been successful, and then later on they've actually received funding through either a program like this a year later or through one of other FRRR opportunities or more broadly. So it's always a great opportunity to understand how you could strengthen a project. That's the information on the grant. I'm happy to take some questions from you. We don't really seem to have anything in the chat at the moment that's coming through. I'm very happy to hear from the floor if you'd like to unmute yourself or raise your hand. But also, and also can just have a think about if you know where your local Nutrien Ag Solutions branded branch is. If you have a project in mind and you've got any questions, and I suppose a big question is, have you started planning?
Not. We haven't. Sorry, I'm based in Maitland. We don't have a Nutrien branch in Maitland. We have 3 near us. Does it matter which branch I go to, or what's your preference there?
No, I think I'm just Maitland is an RA2, isn't it? Location?
Sorry, I don't know what that means.
That's okay. No, I'm sorry, I'm just off the top of my head. We don't have any preference. I would suggest that you go to whichever store there's any familiarity with. Maybe the closest potentially to your location.
Okay, thank you.
And Emma, if you joined late, just letting you know we are sending all the slides out with regards to this presentation and the recording. So you will get all any information that you might have missed.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm fairly tech savvy and I couldn't see the here button when I was trying to work out how to join because I was on my phone and I'm going, it's a QR code, what's happening? So it was a little bit confusing, your invitation, if I may say so.
Okay, so thank you for that feedback. Now we have got a couple of questions coming through in the chat now. You've got a project in mind that's in the planning stages. If you need funds for the project before October, we obviously won't be providing those funds before. If you're starting the process and you have an activity that you might be able to consider stage 2 that you need funding for, then we could potentially fund that. So it's just a little bit vague in regards to what that project looks like and what starting the process in October might look like. If some of that is planning, and you talk about that in your application, it might be that, starting the process involves reaching out to people to find out who would attend and doing those kind of things. That's fine. You're definitely eligible to apply if it just means you've applied, you're looking for funding, and you're going to start, I suppose, planning and activating an activity in the hope that you receive funding for it.
Sorry, I'm not sure if you can hear me. I just thought I'd jump in with a little bit more information for you there.
Sure.
So essentially what we're trying to do is refocus, I guess, some of the visitors to our area and give them a better understanding of what we do agriculturally in Coolin, which is a remote area of the wheat belt of Western Australia.
Yep.
So we get a lot of people passing through, and what we've found is that none of them really understand what it is we do. They see the paddocks, they have no idea what's in them. They don't understand the different things we're trying to do to make agriculture and farming better around here and to create a more sustainable future for everyone. So what we're trying to do is come up with initiatives within the town using some of the facilities that we already have to promote that. So we're doing like series of interviews and so on with our farmers. We're hoping to get drone footage of different farms around the region, that sort of thing, and put together some really interactive things for visitors to look at when they come through town. So essentially what we're wondering is if we did that in stages, possibly. So we had stage one, then which we would like to start sooner rather than later, and then stage two to build on that and so on and so forth. Would that be something that would be an idea that you'd like
look,
to
that will
consider?
be fine as long as the funding that you receive isn't paying any of those earlier stages retrospectively. It needs to, it needs to fund, the next stage and whatever is involved in that. And, that could be, it could be web work or something, or
Yeah.
photography or things like that. And advancing that. But definitely if you stage it in that way and you obviously have funding or you have resources that'll enable you to do some of that work, and just define a specific project here that would happen after mid-October.
Fantastic, thank you.
Pleasure.
Can I just jump in there? I'm really sorry to hog things. We're trying to do the same thing in Maitland, South Australia. I've just put my contacts in the chat. I'd love to talk to you.
Okay, all right, no worries at all. And also
share ideas.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. That's perfect to actually be able to do that. So I think I'll just say to Kira that you can find Emma's details in the chat, Kira, if you'd like to reach out and have that similar conversation. I think that's a great outcome. Now we've got a couple of more
Danielle.
questions in here.
Sorry,
Yes.
Danielle, do you mind if I just jump in? Sorry,
No.
Emma, I wasn't sure which Maitland you were from, if it was in South Australia or New South Wales, but
Yes.
you do have one of our Nutrien franchises that is close to you based in Arthurton. So Central Ag Solutions would be one of your closest branches as well. But for those of you on the call, I have popped it in the chat as well. You are welcome to jump on the Nutrien Ag Solutions website to find your nearest branch. So if you just put in your town or postcode, that should direct you to be able to find your nearest branch for your branch manager's endorsement as well.
Thanks so much, Jackie.
No worries.
Tracy, is a canteen or disabled toilet upgrade that complements a sporting facility likely to be acceptable? I appreciate that the spectator base and making sure that people are able to attend the games is important. It would be a stronger application if that facility is used outside of just sport, because obviously engaging that spectator base to come and see you benefits the sport. So I think just to strengthen an application along those lines, it would be important to understand if the facility has other community uses. Danielle Connolly, yes, we do consider applications for financial contribution of projects that might be reliant on several sources of grant funding. We also appreciate that you're putting in an application now, and you might be putting, 3 or 4 applications in for different, elements of a project. So you might be able to confirm that you've got all that funding provided. We're okay with that as long as if you have $1 million project and you have, you've got $995,000 that you're needing to confirm in the next few months, we'd probably be a bit concerned about the $5,000 that you're asking for this grant to contribute. But if you have like a $25,000, $40,000 project and you're going to Shire and you're going to a few other places to get that, You also have a lot of in-kind support and those kind of things. You know, we believe in you. We believe you. If it's a good project, we feel confident that, you know, our investment in it is a worthwhile thing, and we will be happy to support you without you having confirmed that all the other funding is in place. Okay. A charity fundraising event. Fundraising, we really don't do a lot of support of fundraising, because the fundraising is usually going back to support the club or another activity. And so in some ways we see that sponsorship or that kind of activity is better for organisations to support. So I don't recommend applications for fundraising events, whether it's a sports club or even other activities, including fun runs. It's very unlikely that we would fund that unless potentially it was about the volunteers that were involved in that project. For equipment hire for an event to be held over the last weekend of October. Yes, as I said, we understand that this grant will be announced mid-October. I would say 18th of October, probably at the latest. And we send out notification on the day, you know, around that time frame, and you can turn around and apply for those funds then. It's pretty tight though if your event is dependent on receiving this grant. So I would just suggest it's a pretty tight time frame to be actually trying to achieve that. But we would definitely consider it. It will need to look feasible to us, and I think you would need to provide an explanation of what you will do if you don't receive the funds. Okay, I don't think we have any other questions coming through. Oh, yes, we do. We have a wetland area in the Murray that has had recent cultural signage established with approval of local First Nations. So for signage to be installed throughout the reserve would qualify. Yes, covering the cost of signage would meet the eligibility. I'm going to hand over to Jane now and have her talk you through the tips and tricks of granting. Jane.
Thank you, Danielle. I think Sharice's message did just come through there. I'm not sure if we want to answer that first.
We can talk to it. Sharice, we're probably likely to only support one. As I said, we've got 50 grants that we like to do a really broad disbursement across Australia to ensure that, I suppose we're sharing and supporting, a really broad range of people. So it really would depend on the projects. Occasionally, I think we've supported, maybe 2 projects in a region, and maybe they actually only have a total grant offering of 5,000 between the 2 of them. So, that is always a consideration. And look, we do award on merit as well. We are trying to award the strongest projects grants, and I always feel confident about that. But there's also a lot of strong projects out there. So, and look, if we think it's appropriate as well, we also look for opportunities within our other grant programs. So if this is your first time looking at FRRR grant, we do encourage you to also look at what else FRRR has on hand. And you can apply to those grants at the same time that you apply to this grant as well.
Yeah, so basically information I'll talk to, you can use with any of the FRRR grants. It's just sort of a run through as to some tips on sort of the sections within the applications. Yeah, it's just basically the application process is to tell a story about your project and answer questions about the what, the why, the who, the when, the where, the how, and the how much, just to sort of all fit it in together so we have a good understanding of your project. So if I start with the what and the why, the what is basically telling us what you're going to do and how it's going to improve the livability of your community. So your what can be, you know, an activity, a infrastructure purchase, a training. It can be lots of things in this grant program. We just need to understand what it is. And then we move on to the why, as in why. Why do you need this project to happen? What sort of need are you addressing in your community, or what opportunity you're hoping to deliver for your community? So, yeah, and it's also good to let us know how the idea came about. Is it something that's come in through a chat with your community group? Is it something that you've identified in a strategic plan? Any of that sort of information, if you have some documents to go with that, just upload them with your application, just so we can see that it's, you know, a thought out project. It's, yeah, that you've put some thought into identifying the need for your community. It's also good to include a description of your community and why this project will help your community. And if the project is addressing a certain issue, explain to what extent it is impacting the community. And if you've got some data on these observations, then include that as well. Like you might say, we've realised that our community is lacking this, and you can see that by having this project active, you would expect this improvement. And if you've got some stats on that observation, then include that just so we can see that as well. It's also, you might think to include a description of what will happen if the project doesn't go ahead, just so we can sort of gauge sort of the importance of the project to your community. And then within the who section, we're interested in both who the project is targeted at and who also will be involved in running the project. So include both those subsets of people, just to give us an understanding of the beneficiaries and those involved in the project. And if, for example, you say you're going to involve a certain subset of the community, make sure, well, your application will be strengthened if you have a letter of support from that subset, just so we know that they're aware of the project and they're interested in what you're hoping to do, and they also understand why it's important, and yeah, their involvement is key. So it does sound like common sense, but you would be surprised at how many people say, oh, we're involving the school kids, but then they sort of forget to get a letter of support from a school kid or the teacher. So yeah, just those sort of things. Don't underestimate how important those letters are to the assessors. And if you're going to involve or benefit a certain group, as in the elderly, disabled, First Nations, men, women, etc., just go out and get some signatures or something, just to show that if it is an event, that they are interested and they will attend. Not that you just got an idea, but you don't have an audience. So yeah, they're always very good. And now now I'll move on to the how, when, where, and expected outcomes. In that section, it's important to include critical project dates. It's good if you can provide the assessors with key stages of your project. Like really take the time to map out different parts of your project and when they're all going to happen. And then if you realize that, oh, you'll need permits for that stage, then upload that with your application. Yeah, a strong application is one where we can see that the applicant has a real idea of how to manage the project, and they sort of know when things when they plan for things to happen. And of course things come up, but through this program we do permit for things to change, but at the start it's good to have an understanding of what or how you think the project will occur. Like your plan A, we like to see your plan A. And with the expected outcomes, it's good to describe how things will be different as a result of the project and how you'll know whether this has been achieved. If you think at the end of the project that you'll collect feedback via a survey, then let us know in the application that this is the plan. And if you think that you might publicise the outcomes in a newsletter or a newspaper, also include that here at the start. It's just good for us to understand the whole concept that you've thought of. And then the next is the how much, the budget section. Here we're just interested in the income. That includes both the grant funds and any other income that might be coming to you, either via your own funds or via another contributor. Just include those details. And then the expense section is, how are those funds going to be spent? You'll also note in our application there's an in-kind section. That's where you list any volunteer labour, help that you're going to get that doesn't result in either money in or money out. It's just volunteer. We say to cost that at $45 an hour, and it's just gives us an understanding of who in the community are involved. And it also indicates that there's strong support from community groups and individuals. So yeah, it's good to include some details there if you are intending on involving volunteers in running the project. Quotes, we suggest that any items over $1,000 that you upload a quote. This can be a snip from a website that says that item costs a certain amount of money. If you're getting contractors and we don't expect a formal quote if that's not easy to get, but if you have an email conversation with the contractor and they give you a rough idea of what their costs will be, just include that email. That's all we need to sort of show that the figure that you're using there isn't just a guess. You've actually gone out and spoken to people about it. And with items that quotes aren't related to it, like just, your time or something along project management time or something, we just ask you to provide the costing. So X amount of hours at X rate equals this. So yeah, we just need to understand that they're not just random numbers. You've actually put some thought into what things will cost. So I think that's all in terms of the how much it will cost. And yeah, just general comments about writing your applications. Just do make sure that you read through the guidelines before you start. yeah, there's some, good hints in the guidelines and on the FRRR website in all those little drop down tabs. Yeah, the application form has word limits. It usually comes up with red if you get that part of it incorrect. And at the end, if you submit, you'll see it does come up with the errors. So do go back and address those, because we don't often have time to reach back out to you to get the missing information. I think that's about all I was going to say, Danielle. There is a 1-800 number on the FRRR website. There is a group of us who answer that phone and are happy to help any grantees with their questions. So feel free to call that as you're going along if you have any questions. And yeah, it's just a chance for you to tell a story about your project and why it's important to the community. I think
Thanks,
that's it.
Jane. As Jane said, FRRR has got some really great grant seeker resources. So, we understand there's a lot of volunteers doing this work. And so if you, want to get some inspiration on how you might, what you might be doing for your project in your project planning, or actually looking at other projects that have been delivered, we advise you to have a look at the grant seeker resources page that I've got there. And you can also look and see what else has been funded through this program by going and having a look at our news section and doing a search for Nutrien. You'll find some of the case studies we've done in the past. And also there's a list, if you go through the web page to the last year's grantees, you can see what's been funded before. So look, it's always handy to understand what's going on. I think with this program, I really do emphasize, we are really looking to support local community priorities that'll actually help your community to be thriving now and for the future. And we understand that you know what that is. It's not for us to decide. So no idea is silly. Just tell us why it's important and show us how you're going to do it. And we will be really excited to see your project. I think I got very excited when someone got a RoboVac for a hall once, because it meant that volunteers didn't have to always go in. It was out of town. It would have involved people going there, and they ran a play group. And we all know what happens at play groups. There's a lot of food that's on the floor with young children, and that changed everything. Though it changed the need for volunteers to be running out there and constantly cleaning. It supported them in their OH&S support for maintaining that hall as a property that could actually be effectively used, as for those functions. So, someone came up with that idea, wrote a really good application, told us what was important, and we were like, great, that's fabulous. So, there is no silly ideas. I think if you think it's important and you understand how it's going to work, get in touch and make an application. And if you want to have a chat, as Jane said, we have great people on the phone. They have been answering calls for thousands of people making applications, and they're really good at guiding you through what might support. As you can see now, we've got a couple of grant programs open. There's also ANZ Seeds of Renewal that's currently open, and also Strengthening Rural Communities, which is open throughout the year. So you can also have a look at those grant opportunities, and I do advise you kind of sign up for FRRR's e-news. It's both an inspiration and also a source of, what other grants are available or what's coming up going forward. I don't think we've got any more questions in the chat to be answered, but I will throw to the floor again in case anyone has anything. Someone's asked, could a community group use this for developing a strategic plan to better support their community? Yes, they could. Yes, we've seen opportunities like that before, and been very supportive of them. So one thing that's really important with something like that is just understanding who that facilitator is, and and what work they would do and their expertise in actually doing that work, and who and how you will involve, a really diverse group of the community in contributing to that strategic plan. So you've got, all the voices of that community being represented in that plan. As Jane said, we do require quotes over $1,000, but we, value the fact that sometimes, you might get an email or something that's making a commitment through a facilitator, and that's all acceptable in kind of making that application. Well, on that note, I will say thank you very much, everyone, for attending. It's been a really great attendance, and I do hope that we see some applications from you all, and I hope a lot of you are successful. Have a wonderful day, and thank you.